Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Wednesday. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. It is hump day on this November the 2nd, 2022. Again, I hope you're all doing well. We got a packed show, a lot to get into, taking your questions, your comments, and your calls, as always. 843-790-3337. That's 843-790-3337. I see John, Edward, Hunter, Dre, Shullen, Jay Morris, Cyrus, Brennan M., Kevin Crossland, Travie, Hunter Herlong, Gene, Carolina Titans, Stephen Morville Jr., Gad, Thomas Walker, Alex Mitchum, Cody Gaskins with the hashtag FireSat right off the jump. I was wondering, is today going to be more of the same? Is it going to be a therapy Wednesday? Is this just going to be therapy week? Or are Gamecock fans ready to put the past in the past and move on and look ahead and look at the bright sun shining outside? But no, I don't think so. We still are here. Marcus Satterfield speaking to the media today. That shouldn't get any attention or anything. And yeah, we're here rock and rolling, guys. Again, taking your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. We got my good friend Anthony Treash of Pro Football Focus jumping on the show here shortly. Guys, before we rock into everything, of course, I want to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks, because the Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. When you do, use the promo code TSUS. You're going to receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 with our friends at Prize Picks. And got so many fans of the Spurs Up Show and of the Daily Crow have made so much money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. Again, you can play college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it. So go download the app, go to their website, use the promo code TSUS at sign up to receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Be sure to check them out and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you. Okay, again, guys, phone lines right now are closed because Anthony Treash is expected to join us here in the next minute or two. And then after that, we will take all of your questions, your comments, your calls, everything in between that you can think of. We'll rock. We'll continue to roll here on this Vanderbilt week. Gamecocks, of course, taking on the doors podcast did drop this morning. Episode 722. My full thoughts, and I tell you what, guys, I don't think I've ever spent as much time in a podcast breaking down and discussing and dissecting what a head coach and his players had to say in a presser than I did on the podcast that dropped today. And when you are coming off the type of loss that you are, everything you say is going to be critiqued and criticized and overanalyzed, if you will. Cody Gaskin says, we should watch Sat's presser. Nah, Cody, I don't think so. Let me ask you this, Cody. What's the point in that? What would be the point in that? I literally think people just want to watch the presser to get upset, because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. You're going to get upset, inevitably. Let me read this one text, and then we'll get my guy Anthony Treash in here. The text says won't have a chance to call in today, so I was seeing if you could address this on TDC. Tired of hearing Beamer and Sat and others saying there are plays out there that we're missing due to execution. Part of the job of a coach or teacher is to adjust what you are doing to increase the probability of success of your players or students. Asking them to do something over and over again that they are not having success with is incompetent coaching. Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but you're going to get that typical coach speak week after week after week. I don't know what else to tell you. You're simply put just not going to get anything really of substance. And I hate to tell you guys, it's going to be more excruciating comments from Marcus Satterfield today. Hey, let's get off that and on to a much more fun topic, and that is the fact that every single Wednesday, Anthony Treash of Pro Football Focus takes the time to join us. Anthony, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Just hanging out. I'm obviously not in my normal setup. I'm actually out of town in the beautiful state of Florida, enjoying this high 80s weather. Just and it's, I think it's a great week, Anthony, to get out and about and kind of detach a little bit as much as possible, because things I'm not sure if you've noticed in Gamecock land have somewhat hit the fan, if you will, after Saturday's game. So I'm trying to have a bit of a balance, if you will. I can't help but feel it, but trying to have a balance and wake up every day and realize the sun's still shining, man.
That's a good strategy and good outlook to have. You need that good balance there. So I'm happy you're getting that. But yeah, I've definitely been seeing what's been said across South Carolina Twitter. Some of it's a little wild, some of it's justified. But yeah, I mean, after this past weekend's performance, I know we talked about it last week, where I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit closer, just because of the way Missouri kind of plays and the way South Carolina plays. It was a little bit of a tough matchup for them, and unfortunately for South Carolina, the end result, showed Missouri kind of was the better team there. So I think it's an interesting time, and I think I've reached my conclusion on what the offense is, and what I would say the most, who was responsible for the biggest share. Because I know we've talked about it in weeks past. There was kind of equal blame with everybody, but I think it's kind of clear some of the issues that are there. Even though I would say it's not 100%. And definitely it's not time to click the panic button and think, okay, the South Carolina football is dead for the next decade. We're not going anywhere. Because I've seen that from South Carolina's fans. But I think overall, there's still reason to be encouraged, but definitely changes that have to be made.
Anthony, let's start there, my friend. I would love to hear your thoughts. Obviously, all of the topic of conversation this week is the offense, Marcus Satterfield. And listen, I've made my feelings known that I just think from what I've seen and the additions, the changes in personnel coming into this year and the product, I mean, what's crazy, Anthony, is you could argue the offense was better last year. And that, to me, is maybe the most baffling thing of all. But you look at the numbers, you're second to last in offense, right above Vandy, who you ironically play this week, but you're averaging around 20 points per game in SEC play, just over 300 yards per game. We see Spencer Rattler's stat line, 5 touchdowns, 9 picks. Like you said, you feel like you've kind of made up your mind or at least started to draw some conclusions. I would love to hear, again, your overall thoughts, what you see from South Carolina's offense and what changes you feel like need to be made to move this thing in the right direction.
Yeah, and to your point, the offense last year being better, it's just crazy that, they're in this situation. Yeah, it's week 10, and you're looking back like, man, the offense was probably better last year, but you have significantly better players this year. I mean, I don't think there's even an argument to be made there. I mean, the quarterback position, we talked about it last year. It was a disaster. It was one of the worst in college football. Some weeks you didn't know who was going to be the guy, and you had a guy that was supposed to be helping the coaching staff play quarterback a few weeks, and that's not what you want to be in SEC football. And here you are, you have a former Heisman contender, favored to be the number 1 overall pick, and you have one of the most inefficient offenses in college football. And I think you look at what Spencer Rattler's done. Again, we know he can play good. We know he can have one of the most explosive passing offenses in college football. He did that at Oklahoma this year. Again, I think the overarching theme is a lack of trust, and I don't even know if it's a lack of trust, more of like, hey, this is the way we want to play football, and we're going to put you in that situation. So you're playing our game and you're not playing your game. And you could see that clear, just kind of tug of war battle there. And, again, that's not to say that, Spencer Rattler he's not a perfect quarterback, right? He has his limitations, right? I mean, like the one play, for example, that stood out to me was the pick at the end of the game against Missouri. It was just like, hey, man, they're playing 3 cloud. You expect it in that situation. But, with that coverage, you have that corner. I know he's supposed to kind of follow the cover 2 rules, jam, route, whatever. But, he keeps sinking. You should see he keeps sinking. He's not stopping. Well, like, why do you even throw the ball? It's just stuff like that where he will do every once in a while. But, again, it's just like the starts of the game, those scripted plays. Talked a little bit about this before. It's just very conservative. It's not creative. It's, I think the defense knows exactly what's kind of come, because it's kind of the same stuff on a weekly basis. And next thing you know, you're down, 2-3 scores, and you haven't scored any points. Your first 3 drives are, 11 plays in total, 3 punts. I think that's more a reflection of, overall the play design, in addition to the execution of that. But overall, you just kind of have to look at it and say, hey, this stuff isn't working, right? It hasn't worked all year, and that's just kind of the method there. And I get, it's tough for Coach Beamer to kind of talk about this, because every coach handles it differently, right? You never want to throw the guy you brought in, the guy that's yours, under the bus and just say, hey, he's doing a poor job. There's some stuff that we need to work on or whatever, but you look at that, you look at, the Jaheim Bell situation, which is mind-boggling because, he's one of the most dynamic weapons in college football. And it's just kind of hard to imagine him not being on the field at a consistent rate. Overall, it doesn't seem like everybody's bought into the system. I mean, not necessarily the culture. That's a completely different situation. And I think given everything that's going on from an offensive perspective, I think the culture is decent considering that, right? It could be significantly worse, right? We've seen these types of situations play out where everybody's just kind of like, F this, this isn't working. I'm not going to buy in. I think people are kind of bought in, but overall to the schematic aspect of it, I think you're kind of seeing more and more people kind of have frustrations with this isn't working, right? We're not moving the ball effectively. We're leaning on too much in these certain areas. And, in SEC football, those certain areas, they can get shut down pretty easily, right? Because, you can try all the screen stuff underneath and, relying on the run game. But, this is SEC football. These are different athletes, right? And these are more talented players, better coaches. I mean, you can kind of see that. So it's just interesting. I think we'll probably see a change at some point. I know a lot of people wish it would be like right now. I think obviously, Coach Satterfield got the position he's in for a reason. Nobody has the perfect answers, right? I don't have the answers. If I was, I would be, over there coaching. But, nobody has the perfect answers. But you can, objectively look at the situation and say, this isn't working. And I think that's kind of the overall theme. I think everybody knows this isn't working. You got to try something new. Whether that be with Coach Satterfield or somebody else. But, just given the talent that they do have, I mean, it's just kind of inexcusable for them to have these kind of numbers because they have guys that could play in the NFL that should be playing in the NFL, multiple guys there. So it's just definitely baffling.
Anthony, you mentioned change and changing up something, right? And most fans, I would say the majority of the fan base wants Marcus Satterfield out. And Shane Beamer has made it very clear that's not going to happen. Now, you have been one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Spencer Rattler supporter, at least that I have seen publicly, notably, what have you. There are now fans calling for him to be benched. So when you speak on change, I want to give you an opportunity to speak on. I am not one of those. I would like to make that clear. But there are some people, again, they just want to change something, right? So if you can't fire the OC, who's next in line? The quarterback, right? And you look at his numbers and, listen, I could argue that if any other quarterback on the roster had the stat line right now that Spencer Rattler has, they probably would be benched. I don't know that you really solve anything by putting – I almost think it's one of those things, Anthony, where it's like people don't even want to bench Rattler and put somebody else in because they think another guy's going to be better. Like you mentioned, they just are so frustrated and want to change something up. But I almost feel like you're creating a new problem in that scenario. I know, obviously, you have been, again, one of his biggest supporters. You've also been very critical of his play. But I'd have to imagine you balk at the idea of benching Spencer Rattler being a positive move for South Carolina at this point in the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. I mean, you could see the argument for something like that if they want to keep playing the way they are playing from a play calling and schematic perspective, right? Because this is obviously not – Rattler can't play in this type of system, right? It's not working. It is justifiably not working, and every single data point reflects that. But overall, it's just like, Spencer Rattler had the highest, passing grade we've ever seen from a non-draft eligible quarterback in the PFF era in 2020. He had one of the highest big-time throw rates at like 9.4% this year. I can look real quick. He's at 4.6%. He's got more turnover-worthy plays, whereas he had 3x the amount of big-time throws before. Do you really want to take that quarterback off the field, right? And I know a lot of people will say, oh, it was Lincoln Riley's system, all of that, but there's no denying his talent, right? And he's one of the most talented players in college football, I think, of course, in the right situation. And this is not an ideal situation for him. So I see the argument for people who are like, well, I guess it's kind of like a glass half full thing. It's like, hey, well, we can't do this, but we can go with this route because this is the offense we are going to play. We're kind of stuck in the situation. So we got to go to plan B and we got to change something. But, that's not an ideal situation, I think, because your ceiling, if you do make a quarterback move, is slightly higher at the best, and your floor is arguably even lower. So I don't see that situation and thinking that's the right decision to make. So again, I just go back to what he has done and what he can be, and why would you want to take that person off the field? So, I see it if you still have the same coaching situation. I can see why you do it, but it's not helping, I don't think.
Now, looking back at Saturday's game, Anthony, let me ask you this because, and I'm certainly not excusing the play. Of course, I was there in person, and it was an abysmal performance. I thought your defense, obviously, the team came out sluggish. Defense got it going. They held on, kept you in that ball game as long as they could. But obviously, when you have the offensive performance that South kind of had, there's just really no hope for you. At some point, your defense is going to break. And all things considered, I mean, give up 23 points in an SEC game, you feel like you should have a pretty good shot to win. Are we not giving Missouri enough credit? How much of that game was, because I think we all understand, Anthony, what happened, right? It finally caught up to South Carolina. We saw these deficiencies against A&M and Kentucky, but Beamer ball and big plays on defense bailed you out a bit, right? Accounted for a couple of touchdowns, stole the momentum away. When you do those things, it's going to bode really well for you. Well, you didn't get those plays in this game against Missouri. You had to go mano-a-mano on the offensive side, and you simply couldn't do it. But a Missouri team that going into last weekend had been really close in some SEC games, should have beaten Auburn. They gave Georgia a great fight. You keep going down the list there. Florida, you could argue they probably should have beaten. When you go back and look at that game on Saturday, how much of that game was, South Carolina's flaws obviously got magnified, but what did you see from Mizzou? Are they a little bit better than you think most folks were giving, at least from the Gamecock side of things, were giving them credit for going in that game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for this game, I would say South Carolina lost it more than Mizzou won it. You still have to give Mizzou credit for doing what they did because they did everything they needed to do. They kind of played their game. But I think overall, we're not giving Mizzou enough credit for over the totality of the season. I think with what Eli Drinkwitz is doing with the talent that he does have, it's pretty impressive. Just kind of putting them in those situations, especially against Georgia, right? So I definitely think there's reasons if you're a Mizzou fan to be encouraged in the long term. Obviously, you got a lot of young talents on offense. They just kind of need that quarterback there. But with South Carolina again in particular, I thought the defense held their own for the most part. There were some, I would say big plays they allowed that obviously, attributed to them losing the game in the end, right? I mean, I look at I think they had 4 20+ yard pass plays allowed. And a lot of it was just kind of good offensive design. So I think that's where Mizzou did have the upper hand, but just kind of mistakes that South Carolina shouldn't have been making, right? Just kind of overly reacting to eye candy, right? It's just, when you did have to switch, you're not doing that. Biting on the play fake when you shouldn't be, stuff like that, right? I mean, it was just kind of the stuff that you need to be able to do on a week-to-week basis that we just didn't really, that kind of hurt them overall this week. Now, I'm not saying the defense played poorly by any means, still was pretty good. I think the run game for Mizzou wasn't explosive, but it was just consistent chunks, right? And then at that point, it's just kind of a wash. But from a passing perspective, it was kind of, you let up some big plays, too many in my opinion, but it's hard to say it was overall a bad day when you're playing an SEC team. It's still an SEC team. You held them to 23 points. That's pretty good overall. But it was just a handful of plays that really killed him. Now, there were some standouts. I mean, Darius Rush didn't even get a target coverage. That speaks volumes about how good Darius Rush is. And I'm sure they saw the last game and they're like, we're not going to go this guy's way, right? And, Cam Smith, I think he allowed one of those big plays, if I recall correctly. But still, overall, it was a good game considering the position he is playing. So, I mean, there is some positives in there. But, overall, I think it wasn't, Mizzou's offense was great. Mizzou's defense was great. South Carolina's defense. But I think it was more about South Carolina's offense just being lethargic, inefficient, slow to start the game. And I think that's what really played to the end result being what it did. But again, there were just, too many big plays allowed in the passing game.
I want to go back to something, Anthony, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation. What's so interesting is it's like the closer you get to it, the more severe it becomes. And I'm talking about, I think each individual team. And and, diehard fans of each school, they just take it so much more personally. And I think we're harder on ourselves than anybody because, you mentioned, like I said, at the beginning of the conversation that, this one loss doesn't mean that South kind of football is doomed for the next decade. It doesn't mean, it's just one game. But again, if you followed along with Gamecock Nation on social media this week, you would literally, what you see, I think, Anthony, is the PTSD from the Will Muschamp era. I mean, that's really what it is. And bad offenses and bad offensive coordinators. And I think also what plays into the mood right now is the college football playoff rankings dropping last night. You got Tennessee number one. You got Clemson up there. You got Georgia up there. And seeing your biggest rivals have success. And I know this is sort of out of left field and kind of random, but it's just, I've thought this for a while. And I've told people before, Anthony, that I feel like national folks look at South Carolina football and feel like, hey, they're trending in the right direction. Beamer's doing a great job. You talk to Gamecock fans, and it's a roller coaster week after week. I mean, last week, this time, we're smoking the Aggie pack. We're dancing on A&M's graves, right? We've won 4 in a row. We're never going to lose again. And then this week, Carolina's never going to win again. And that's why I love having you on, Anthony, because I feel like you bring a sobering national perspective to where it's like, just because your rivals are doing this or this one game happened, that South Carolina football is still in a good position. As long as Shane Beamer can make the necessary adjustments, things are still on course. And the Gamecocks football program, it doesn't need to be burned down. It's one game. It's just one loss. Again, I love bringing your national perspective in because I feel like national folks see it much differently than fans who are so close to the program see it.
That's why I love college football, right? I mean, just the passion. You just see it on a weekly basis, and you definitely see it with South Carolina. I would say in the 90th percentile in terms of just passionate fan bases. It's one of the best, in my opinion. But sometimes you will get the overreactions in the wrong direction. The sky's not falling, right? I mean, it's not a horrible loss, and I think the positive to take away from it is that, Vegas didn't expect this to be a blowout win for South Carolina, right? I didn't expect it to be a blowout win for South Carolina. There's definitely plenty of reason to show that, hey, this is going to be a closer game than expected, right? It's not like you lost to a group of 5 team at home, right? I mean, this is still an SEC program. And you're trending in the right direction. Maybe if you lose this week to Vandy, maybe it's a different conversation, but I don't anticipate that happening. I think overall, a big thing to do with it too is just, hey, I mean, just the hype in the offseason, right? You get all these players, 3 key offensive transfers, with number 7 being the most important one. You're like, hey, we might have a superstar quarterback, and you haven't really seen that. I think that probably plays to it. But I mean, this is still a good season they got going, right? They're 5-3. I mean, the program was in shambles, right? I mean, it was as bad as it possibly could be when Beamer was taking over, right? And I think just getting it to this point where there is optimism is definitely encouraging, right? I mean, you still beat Kentucky on the road. I don't care they didn't have their backup. You beat Kentucky on the road. You beat Texas A&M. I mean, those are 2 great wins there. So I think, maybe it's a different conversation if you lose to Kentucky, but you beat Missouri, and that's a trade-off. But I think overall, there's still plenty of reason to be encouraged. And, I think you look at the next, few games and you're like, okay, maybe they can do something here and make a little noise and, kind of, I would say, sizzle the panic. I definitely think that they will still stay on course. It may not be 9-3 this year. But eventually I think they could probably get to those standards with this, with Beamer leading the way.
Anthony, death, taxes, and Gamecocks football finding a way to beat Vanderbilt. It's been 13 straight games. It doesn't matter, it seems, how good South Carolina is or how bad South Carolina is. They just simply find a way to win these matchups against the Commodores. I mean, heck, you look at last year, Zeb Nolan, the hero, coming off the bench, and somehow the Gamecocks escaped death in that one. But when you take a look at Vandy, what do the numbers tell you? I actually like Clark Lee. I think Clark Lee's doing a good job in Nashville, and I see Vanderbilt. I think they're renovating some of the stadium, or they've got some stadium add-ons. So it looks like they're trying to invest a little bit more in football. Played some tough games early on in the season. Got blown out by Georgia, which a lot of teams get blown out by Georgia, and then played Missouri really close. You could argue should have beaten Missouri, who the Gamecocks just lost to. But when you look at Vanderbilt specifically, what do the numbers tell you and what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I know I just said that the program that Beamer kind of inherited was in shambles and as bad as could get. And what Clark Lee inherited was definitely worse. That takes significant time and effort to kind of get back on track, and that's a slow train there for Vanderbilt. But I definitely am a big fan of Clark Lee. I like his support staff there too. I mean, Barton Simmons there, the GM for Vandy. They got smart people in there, and I think they're going to get there eventually. Right now, this year, it's not quite there yet. I know they got off to a hot start, but as we're seeing in SEC play, just hasn't been. It's been Vandy typically. Just looking at what they have offensively, I really like McGowan, the wide receiver for true. He's a true freshman. I think he's going to be, probably, I don't want to say a star, but he's going to be one of the better players to come out of Vandy in quite some time. I mean, he's a weapon on scheme touches, just a great athlete in space. He's definitely one to look at. Will Shepard, I mean, he's been a reliable player for him. But overall, this receiving room really struggles to play with physicality, right? I mean, they really don't take that in well. And then you look at the quarterback situation, AJ Swan, true freshman, he played outstanding against Northern Illinois like over a month ago. But since then, when he's getting into some of these tougher defenses, it's kind of been downhill. It's been what we've seen at the quarterback position at Vandy for a while. And so I look at this offense and just look at South Carolina's defense and say, this is a pretty tough matchup for the Commodores, just because I think with South Carolina, now they have been a little less aggressive in recent weeks, but I would probably expect that to go back to what it was in the first, few games of the season, especially when they're playing that lackluster competition. I probably suspect they're going to blitz a heck of a time. They're probably at half the time. I think they'll probably play more man coverage and make it difficult on those receivers. I think it's going to be overall just a tough matchup for the Vanderbilt offense. And, I think from a defensive perspective, they have some guys there, right? I mean, Orgy's a great off-ball linebacker for him. I mean, he had one of the best performances really I've seen all season just a couple of weeks ago against Mizzou. But overall, I think they're just kind of lacking the bodies in the secondary. Even on the defensive line, you could argue. So I think it's a good opportunity for South Carolina's offense to get back on track. I feel like I've said that several times this year. I mean, they got to do something against this type of defense. But I think overall, even if it's the same old story with South Carolina's offense, you just look at South Carolina's defense against Vandy's offense, and they're just not ready yet. I think they'll get there eventually, but it's still kind of the same story for the Vandy offense. So I think that's where South Carolina has the advantage, and that's where I look at this game and say I would be pretty shocked if South Carolina didn't win, even by multiple scores. I know this. I've seen the point spread, and I think that's an overreaction. I think the Vegas lines are something people still devalue. I mean, there's no better form out there. You can look at all the power rankings you want, but that's the most accurate representation. But that's not to say from time to time I don't disagree with them. And at that point, that's when I get my card out and I put a little bit something on the game. And this is when I'm going to be, because I just think this is too much of an overreaction there. It was like 6.5, 7 points less.
Yeah. I was going to say too, Anthony, the Vanderbilt secondary, I believe they're second to last or dead last in the SEC in passing defense. So like you mentioned, this should be a great opportunity for guys like Juice Wells, Josh Van. I mean, if Jaheim Bell's just not force-fed the football, it was our friend Brad Crawford that, I want to say he was joking, but I think he was half serious. He said, you're going to see South Carolina go 3 direct snaps to Jaheim Bell, and he might even kick the punt on the first drive just to prove a point that they're going to get him the football. I tend to agree with you, man. I'm not someone, I don't normally like to drop my prediction early, and I haven't dropped the score, but my best bet is South Carolina minus 6.5. I look at this, Anthony, very similarly to when South Carolina was coming off the loss to Georgia and everybody was down and out, sort of doom and gloom, if you will, and season's over, whatever. And you're going into Charlotte, and I know the competition much different, right? I'm not trying to say Vanderbilt is Charlotte any means, but it felt like an overreaction in that one too. And I expected a bounce back game from South Carolina. And I said then, buy low, sell high. I'm in that same mindset this week. I agree with you. Maybe at 7.5, what it opened at, I wouldn't touch it. But 6.5, I'm on South Carolina all day. I'll let you talk a little bit further on that, just the number and your overall prediction, how you see this one going.
Yeah, I mean, again, with the Mizzou game, it was a little bit tougher of a matchup than I think if you just look at these two teams aside from themselves, be like, okay, South Carolina's a better team. They've had more success this year. They should win by a lot. But the matchup there is a little bit tougher for South Carolina. This is just a completely different situation there. And I haven't seen the total. I can't remember the total on that.
48 and a half in this
what was
game.
it?
The total in this game is 48 and a half.
Okay, so
The
I mean,
under
that point,
feels too easy. That's honestly why I didn't.
right. And again, it goes back to that matchup. I can't see Vandy scoring a lot. I mean, if it does, it's going to be from a mistake from South Carolina's defense. I think if I had to put a score projection out there, it should probably be like a 30-10 type of game with the South Carolina victory. I would be shocked if we saw Vandy score, more than a couple of touchdowns at the most. It's just, I don't think they have the people on offense to kind of exploit anyway South Carolina's defense. I think it should be, a good day for Darius Rush, Cam Smith, and even the freshmen back there that I think have been playing above expectation this year. I think they a little bit struggled last week, but overall, I mean, I think it's been a good group there. So I think it should be a strong day for the South Carolina secondary, and I think we'll probably see somewhere in that ballpark, 30-10. That's my early prediction on it.
Anthony, I think if you keep it simple, get the football to your playmakers, just let them make plays. I think you're going to have a very fun night in Nashville. And I tend to agree with you again, all your points on that game. And like I said, things are never as good as they seem, but things are also never as bad as they seem. I think you and I both expecting a big bounce back performance from the Gamecocks this weekend. Before I get you out of here, Anthony, the SEC slate, what a good one, man. Highlighted by Georgia, Tennessee. I will be watching that one. What are some of your favorite plays of the week, games of the week? And, of course, if you want to talk that game in Athens, I think a lot of folks look in Tennessee number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. Do they hold on to that? Does it continue? Do you see the Vols beating the Dogs?
Yeah, I mean, that's one where I'm wrestling with the Bama LSU game. I think it's probably going to be Bama comfortably. I think with the way LSU kind of plays with Jalen Daniels, Daniels is just too reliant on his scrambling ability. Bama's got some athletes on defense, obviously, and I think they're going to be able to kind of reel that in, force him to throw the ball. Against Auburn, he took 31 dropbacks. He had 8 completions, right? I mean, he's not that talented of a passer. I think he's going to have some issues there. So I think Bama's probably going to coast in that one. But I think we're going to get an exciting one with Georgia, Tennessee. It's just hard to expect what you're going to see there. And I look at this, I just kind of seeing people talk about it. I still don't think Coach Heupel's getting enough credit. I know I get the hype for Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt, but Coach Heupel, I mean, this is one of the best offensive designs that even SEC defenses can't contain, right? It put Nick Saban in a bind. I mean, it's just a unique way to play the game. It's a simplified way for the players. I mean, it's really painless for them to kind of grasp what's going on, but it's still incredibly difficult to defend. And that's kind of the perfect storm that you want at the collegiate level. So, I mean, it's definitely one of the better coaching jobs that really we've seen, I think, over the last decade with what Coach Heupel's doing at Tennessee. I think no matter what happens, Tennessee fans have reason. I don't care if Tennessee loses by 20, 30. I mean, you still have to be ecstatic with what has happened so far this year and where the program's at. So for that game, I'm staying away from that game. I'm just going to be excited to watch it. But again, I think Bama and LSU, that's one I'm a little bit more comfortable with thinking. I think Bama's going to, beat Bama, and I think they're probably going to troll LSU, who maybe is just a little overhyped. And I know my pal Seth Galena over in the other room visiting PFF headquarters is going to be upset if he can overhear me. But, it's going to be an exciting weekend of college football. There's no doubt about that.
Gamecocks fans' blood are boiling hearing you talk about that Tennessee offense. I can assure you. I'll ask you this too. Do you feel like Tennessee this season, you mentioned the job Josh Heupel's doing. Obviously, he's doing an incredible job. Do you feel like when you look at Tennessee that this is a kind of a 1-year magical season, kind of like LSU had in 2019? Or do you see Tennessee as kind of they've arrived under Heupel and they're going to be a year in, year out contender now in the East?
That's a good question. I mean, you could see the recruiting impact, right? I mean, they're getting some highly regarded players. I mean, I just saw they got yesterday at a 5-star top 10 recruit. I think 2024. Maybe it could be wrong with that. But, getting those types of receiver talents, I mean, that's huge. And I know that they got a big 5-star coming in at quarterback as well. So I think I'm more curious to see how this offense is going to evolve, right? If whether or not there's any wrinkles added, how much it changes. And I think that will kind of answer that question. So I think it's tough to call right now whether this is going to be a yearly sustained thing. I think this year obviously is just the perfect storm, right? I think having Hendon Hooker in that system for the second season, kind of getting him up to speed again, it's really simple compared to other offenses. I think Hendon Hooker's been playing great, but it is the most quarterback friendly offense in college football, so it's very painless for him. But he's carrying it out at a high level, so I think it's a little too early to say whether or not this is just a 1 year wonder. But I think overall, it's hard to say that Tennessee is not going to be anything but highly competitive in the years to come. It's just whether or not they're going to be okay. Tennessee's elite; they're vying, trying to get the national title type of level.
Anthony Treash of Pro Football Focus. Y'all check out his work. Go follow him on social media. And Anthony, I'm digging the quarter zip, man. Quarter zip season officially here. I love it.
I appreciate that. I know I'm not in Florida.
Fire.
It's a little gloomy here. So
yeah, dude. It's like a high 80s here, but the quarter zip is fire, my friend. That is I like that. I like that. It's a good look.
I appreciate that.
All right, man. Hey, always appreciate you, my friend. Looking forward to doing it again next week.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Yeah, man. Take care. Great stuff from Anthony Treash of Pro Football Focus. Again, really appreciate Anthony taking the time. With that being said, guys, we will take your questions, your comments, your calls. Let me go ahead and open up the phone lines. There we go. 843-790-3377. We got a text here. It says, will Spencer come back for another season and have a Hooker type of year? Well, I think it depends a lot on who is calling the plays. If Marcus Satterfield's back for whatever reason, then you will not see Spencer Rattler back in Columbia. Let's see. Marcus Satterfield speaking on Jaheim Bell says, I want to get him on the field. I want him to touch the ball a lot. He wasn't in the rally mode packages. Says he's going to have chances every game, just whether the ball gets to him or not. When he does get the ball, he's special.
To accept, press 1.
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I am doing well. Appreciate you asking. What's going on?
Good. I got a couple of points here, but I'm from up north, so it's not going to take that long.
I got you. I appreciate it.
When it comes to this Jaheim Bell situation, I mean, you got to look at talent. Teams with better talent than us on paper, teams with less talent than us on paper. They figure out who they need in the game. Obviously, you got Bauer and McConkey at Georgia. They figure out they need them on the field. We just played Missouri. They knew that they needed Lovett and Schrader on the field. I mean, we got to be able to figure out to get our playmakers on the field and get them the ball. That's a management thing. That's not a personnel thing. I mean, would you agree with that?
No, I would agree. I would agree 110%. Yeah, I would absolutely agree.
And you got these other folks screaming and yelling, a bench Rattler. Remember last year, our offense sputtered all year long. We went 6-6. We had a great day against North Carolina. We ran 4 quarterbacks through this system, and now we're on number 5. This is not a personnel issue. This is a system issue that's got to change.
Yeah. I would agree.
I mean,
I would agree. And I think change is coming, my friend. I will say that. I think change is coming indeed. I think it's inevitable.
Yep. And my last point here is I watched the conference yesterday, and Shane Beamer definitely changed his tone from the day before where they asked him about changing play callers, and he emphatically stated, nope. Well, yesterday he must have had a talking to for somebody, because all of a sudden he was in the camp where we're going to do whatever we need to make some good changes for the team.
Yeah.
It's basically it. That's all I got. I see people looking for Spencer Rattler's head on a platter. I'm not. He's the best quarterback on the team. You can't take that guy off the field.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Listen, I think folks just want to change something, and they can't have Marcus Satterfield. So who's next in line? Like I mentioned earlier, man, Spencer Rattler's up. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think you really solve anything taking the best overall quarterback off the field. I just don't. So
I agree with you. And well, listen, that's it for me. So have a great day and enjoy the weather.
Hey, I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Great stuff there. Great insight. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into our first break. Marcus Satterfield is speaking to the media, and I want to touch on a couple of these comments, and I want to get them out on social media. We'll go ahead. We'll jump into a break, guys. After that, we are rocking. We are rolling, taking your questions, your comments, your calls, all that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. All right, guys, we're back here on this Wednesday, November the 2nd, taking your questions, your comments, your calls. I first want to say thank you to Anthony Treash of Pro Football Focus. I just noticed something is missing. See if I can reach around and get this. Woo! How about this guy? Shout out my guy Travis Ward, by the way. Cocky Lids. Be sure you follow him. Let's see. There we go. Love it. Love it. Guys, we'll be back in studio on Friday. Excited, enjoying the time away, but still enjoying rocking with you guys. Let's jump to the here. Dalton, what's up, man? How are you?
How's it going?
It's going well, my friend.
I just wanted to call today and sort of get your take on this. I know that the preseason you said that it's hard to say that you had a successful season if you lose to Mizzou, and obviously after the loss on Saturday, I still agree with you. I think that Mizzou was one of the bigger letdown losses that we've experienced. But would you say this season would be a success if we end up, winning against Vanderbilt and then losing the next three, barring, an upset against Florida, which is possible, and then obviously huge upsets against Tennessee or Clemson?
Yeah.
Would you say a 6-6 season, a similar record as what we had last year, with obviously better personnel on the offensive side of the ball? Would you say that that's successful in year two?
I think success would be a little bit too strong of a word. I don't know if you can really view it pass or fail. Just because you didn't get an A doesn't mean you got an F, right? So I would not call 6-6. I would not say that was a successful year, especially like you mentioned. You lose to Mizzou, and then you just lose the last three, like you mentioned, and there's a good chance that Tennessee and Clemson are not competitive ball games, and I hate to say that right now, but there is that chance at minimum Tennessee. And I even said over the summer, man, that listen, I look at the Shane Beamer era this way, and some may not, but I think the farther away you get from the program, if you look at the 30,000-foot view, as long as Shane Beamer in the first 3 to 4 years, in my opinion, is going to postseasons, going to bowl games, and is recruiting at a high level, you're building the program, right? And you have positive momentum. You're winning between 6 to 8 games the first 3 to 4 years, and you're stacking recruiting classes, similar to what Spurrier did, right, in his first 4 to 5 seasons in Columbia. But no, I mean, year two, going 6-6, the way it's gone with the personnel you have, and you couple that with that loss to Mizzou, I will not come down on any Gamecock fan for feeling like they did not get the return on their investment, or did not get the return on the additions in which we added over the offseason, the preseason, via the portal, what have you. So again, I mean, is it a success failure conversation? Like for example, if you go 6-6, I'm not grading the season an A, right? Like it was a success. I'm also probably not giving it an F. I don't think it was an utter failure, but to say 6-6 is a glowing success, I think might be a little bit strong. I mean, again, I'm not going to be ready to hold Shane Beamer to the fire or anything, but most certainly we all agree, obviously, right now. No matter what record you finish with, that changes need to be made. So, I said it over the summer, and I'll stand by it, man. I won't blame any Gamecock fan for feeling like they didn't get what they hoped for, and they feel like they were left desiring more after a 6-6 finish. So I don't know if that's a great answer to your question, but let me put it this way. I will not be, after the Clemson game, we finished 6-6, be the one following that game going on social media like, hey guys, keep your head up, because we had a successful season going 6-6. I'm not going to quite live there. You know what I mean? So,
to follow that up, let me just follow up for you. So obviously, you talked about it before, obviously 3 of our rivals that we play every year, and who, South Carolina fans have a deep hatred for, are ranked in the top 4 of the college football playoff this year. Georgia, Tennessee, Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that we have to play 3 number 1 teams throughout the season. Georgia, we played them number 1. We got smoked. Tennessee could be number 1 when we play them. Don't know what's going to happen. Clemson could be number 1. Most likely will be top 4 when we play them, barring an upset. So my question to you is, obviously Gamecock fans want to see this program get to a position where we can be competitive against teams like that. Do you think that that under Shane Beamer we are going to get there, or from what you've seen, like, do you feel like we're just only going to get a couple upsets and really, 7-5 is kind of going to be our cap against, the Kentuckys and the Mizzous, and maybe if there's a mediocre Florida team, something like that? Because obviously one of the reasons why I don't think very many fans think that this season has been a success or want to see more out of this team is because those, are our biggest rivals. And we have, a 7-8 game losing streak against Clemson. We have, a 3 or 4 game losing streak against Tennessee. And if we don't turn it around quickly, or if they don't get real bad real quick, then that's probably going to continue here. So do you think that we're going to get to being competitive? Because when we play ranked teams in the top 10, like, none of our games against them have been competitive in the last 5 years.
Right.
And I mean, showing up to those absolute slaughterings, like on our home field, where we just have, opposing fan bases coming in thinking that it's going to be an easy game, doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And I don't think it should.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think it should either. Now, to your point about asking, do I think Shane Beamer's the guy to get South Carolina to that mark or even close to that mark? I can tell you this, my man. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't wear his name on my body. I wouldn't put his name on merchandise. I wouldn't be behind Shane Beamer the way I am, right? I mean, I know that to some degree, right, even those that deny it right now, like even when Will Muschamp was hired, you could have thought the hire was terrible and that he stunk and it wasn't going to work, but he's your football coach, right? At least until he proves to you he's not the guy, you got to be behind him 110%, right? So, I mean, I'm behind Shane Beamer. I believe that, and I said this over the summer, and I'll echo this once again. Shane Beamer, now when you talk about what Tennessee's doing, for example, or even what Clemson's doing, right? Certainly what Georgia's done. When you talk about what those teams are doing and our rivals, and we want to be where our rivals are. And so you tell Shane Beamer that, hey, we want to be where our rivals are. Shane Beamer is trying to do something that even Steve Spurrier didn't do. Shane Beamer is trying to do something that has never, ever, 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 ever been done at South Carolina before. So I can't guarantee you that Shane Beamer is going to take South Carolina to the quote-unquote promised land. If your definition of the promised land is being number 1 in the country, winning the SEC, winning a national championship, I can't promise and guarantee you that he's going to do that, because history would tell us that's not going to happen, right? I know history doesn't matter, but normally history gives us some good idea of what to expect in the future. Now, what I will say about Shane Beamer is this. I am confident that Shane Beamer is going to do everything in his power, right, to get South Carolina to that level. He's going to make every decision he makes is going to be fueled by what's best for the University of South Carolina. And I do believe that Shane Beamer is going to leave Carolina football in a much, much better place than he found it. Shane Beamer might not be the guy to get Carolina to number 1, but he might be the guy that gets you to the guy, right? He might. And I don't know, man. It's the middle of year 2. I can't give you a 110%, but I believe he's the guy. I believe he is, because if you don't believe that, why did you hire him in the first place, right? Did you just hire a coach just to retrieve you from the depths? And I'll say this, Dalton, and I'm going to let you go, but I would agree, though, Shane Beamer is going to do what's best for Carolina. What's best for Carolina, if it's at the end of the season, that's totally fine. I'm not holding it against Beamer that he doesn't want to make the move right now. It is what it is. I'm sure it's a much more complicated thing, right, behind closed doors to make it happen than people give it credit for. But what's best for Carolina is moving off of Marcus Satterfield. Let's give him the opportunity to make that move, right? Let's give him the opportunity to make that move.
Yeah, I mean, my last comment would be this, is that obviously, if you're going to get to the point where I'm not even asking that we have to beat all three of these, top 5 teams every single year. I just want to see competitive games.
Yeah.
And obviously it doesn't help when, you get ranked for the first time in however long, you get on a 4-game winning streak and then you lose and you're unranked the next week. And, all that momentum is lost and you got everybody clowning on you, thinking that it's, you're just the same old Carolina.
I mean, listen, I agree with you. That's got to stop. Like the problem isn't that it is that you're losing to your rivals. Don't get me wrong, but the main problem is how it's happening. Like Georgia it's just not even a competitive game, right? Like to your point, it's not fun going into the week of those games when you're a 24-point underdog, 27-point under. It's like, the Vegas spread doesn't mean everything, but as Anthony Treash just pointed out, and this, Dalton, you're a gambler, like that gives you a pretty good indication. And when you're that big of an underdog, you see that number and you're like, our odds of winning are literally 0.001%. Like, you know what I mean? Like what happened in 2019 was truly a miracle, right? So, Clemson beating you the way they have. And I agree with you 110%, man, because, you look at Steve Spurrier when he first took over, and I know it's Coach Spurrier, and I'm not trying to compare Spurrier and Beamer, but those teams early in the Spurrier tenure, they got blown out. Don't get me wrong, but very often and more often than not, they were very competitive, right? And they played above their talent level, I think, a lot of times. So, listen, I agree with you, man. I agree 110%, especially when it's on your home field. It's just tough, and it's really just flat out inexcusable to just get run up and down the field, especially by your most hated rivals, and it's something that's got to stop.
All right, man. Well, thank you for letting me share my thoughts today, and you have a good one.
Dalton, I appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Yeah, Dalton always does a great job, and really appreciate him calling in. Let's see. I see, by the way, Coleman Hall commenting, already giving an exit speech for Beamer. No, Coleman, that's absolutely not what I'm doing. I was just asked this question a lot over the summer about Shane Beamer. And, hey, Chris, do you think Shane Beamer is the guy to lead us to, lead us to the SEC championship or the national title? And Coleman, I'm just echoing what I said over the summer, that I don't know that you can say 110% yes or no. I just, Steve Spurrier couldn't do it. So it's going to take something really special to make it happen. But I do feel confident, with that being said, that when we look back on Shane Beamer's tenure as head coach, we're going to say that, he put us in a great position to do that. If he's not, again, he might very well be the guy. It's just too early to tell, but I feel confident in what Beamer's doing. I'm not out on Beamer, obviously. And this next OC will determine what Gamecock fans think about him. I think it's what's interesting. Again, it's not the fact that South Carolina's 5-3. It's not the fact, if we're really honest with ourselves, it's not the fact we're 5-3. It's not the fact we lost to Mizzou. It's the fact that we're just – the offense is so bad. And that's becoming our brand, is bad offense. It's just – it looks so out of sorts. It's hard to watch a lot of the time. And Beamer ball doesn't mean that you have to be bad offensively, right? That's what it comes down to. If you're 5-3, it's just like I said last year. You went 6-6, then 7-6 with a bowl game, right? 6-6, 7-6 with a bowl win. But it didn't feel great because the offense sucked, right? And then you see this year, it's the same problems, if not worse. So you're 5-3. You've beaten guys, there ain't a Gamecock fan out there. If you are, you're lying to yourself. If I laid out the exact scenario right now, right? Maybe I don't tell you scores, but I laid out the scenario. Hey, you're going to lose to Mizzou, but you're going to beat Texas A&M and Kentucky. You're going to be 5-3 going in your last 4. I don't think there's a Gamecock fan out there that wouldn't have taken that, but it's just simply put how it's happened. And that it's been so ugly on the offensive side, and Spencer Rattler's statistics and Jaheim Bell's lack of touches. And I get that. I can't be a hypocrite. I preached all preseason that how you win and lose games is what it comes down to. And you've just looked as ugly and pathetic as you possibly could throughout this season. So let's jump to the phone lines. Aaron, what's up, man? How are you?
Oh man, I'm chilling, listening to the show. My day off. My lady ain't here this time, so we won't get interrupted. I'm just thinking about what you've been saying, starting with last year, and I think I asked this question. I think I asked this question to you over the summer. Like, what's a big win? That's what gets me. That's what gets me going. I think I heard one national guy who was talking about the program was like South Carolina has, the big wins have come against Clemson. I told you a Clemson fan said this to me the other day. Well, that was last week about how, the quarterbacks were hurt. And but you know what? Take advantage of it. That's what I say. But how many times has the South Carolina team come into the game where their best player's been hurt or, second or third best player hadn't been healthy? And, they beat our boys over the head. So let us do the same thing. But I don't see the big win. And I always talk about the good. I want to see him out coach the other sideline in a big game. That's the thing that gets me. Yeah. That's what I want to see. I want to see him be a mastermind on the sideline. I want to see it actually out coach the other sideline, where it's like a coaching clinic. Like what Eli Drinkowitz did. Like that was a monster coaching job. You get where I'm going?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think the harsh reality is this, and Savell Newton pointed this out on Twitter. People are asking questions about, like, why is Josh Heupel doing this? Why is Eli Drinkwitz doing this? Why is somebody else doing? Well, Shane Beamer's never been a coach before. Never been a head coach till last year. So, yeah, man, I think we got a rookie head coach. And, I mean, I love Beamer, but he's learning as we go. So, and he will probably look back and say, hey, I made the mistake of hiring Marcus Satterfield, and I brought my buddy along. Let's not forget that he wanted to retain Mike Bobo and keep him in Columbia. And then he was kind of put up against it when Bobo left and, went to Sat. So, listen, I understand people's, and I know this isn't I'm reading some of the comments as you're chatting, and I apologize if they're hard to ignore, but I agree with you, right? The thing I miss so much about the HBC days is, it didn't matter what the spread was. It didn't matter who we were playing. You knew because of that guy on the sidelines, right, we had a chance. You just knew he was going to scheme it up. You knew we were going to be the better coach team most likely that day, right? I mean, you just knew it. So that's not where we are right now. How are you going to expect a year two coach to go out coach a coach who's been doing it for a long time, right? It's just and I'm not saying that to say Shane Beamer's a bad coach, right? I'm not saying that at all, but he's got a slapdick OC, and I don't know what to tell you. Listen, Gamecock fans are up in arms. To all you people bitching and moaning, it's not happening today. It's probably not happening next week either. It's going to be an end of season thing, and so I guess folks are going to just have to vent through it, and however you cope with it's how you cope with it. But I don't think that move's being made, man. Beamer's not making a move based off what somebody on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or even what I say. He's not making that move, man. It's just not going to be on our timeline.
So you say okay, and I agree. Shane Beamer's learning on the job, right? When do you think the narrative will be? When is that narrative going to be behind him? Mm-hmm. Because he's not a rookie anymore. It's
right.
It's the second year, and last year was not a great year. Last year was good. He overachieved.
Are you saying when will the narrative of him being a rookie head coach be behind him in the sense of like people won't use it as an excuse anymore, or people won't?
Let's go there.
Right.
I mean, this is a talk show. This is a talk show. We can take that narrative anywhere.
Well,
we can take it any way we like it.
Well, I think, listen, Aaron, I think what you're seeing right now shows you. I mean, I don't think even a lot of people are using that as an excuse. Shane Beamer is not immune to the pressures. You know, when it's the summertime and, you know, you won your last game against UNC or you know, you've won 4 in a row and you beat A&M. When things are going well, right, everybody tells you they're Beamer ball to the moon and they love Shane Beamer. But, man, the second things start to go south, or the second Shane Beamer shows he's unwilling to make a move on an OC that Gamecock Nation thinks he needs to fire, Shane Beamer's not immune, man, to the pressures of winning in the SEC. I mean, if it's I'm locked in for the long haul. I think that South Carolina should give Shane Beamer time to build. I think as long as he's going to postseasons, again, first 4 to 5 years, he's building the program. But if he's reached year 4, definitely year 5, and it's still a 6-6 product, Beamer's not immune to the pressures that are going to come with that. See, we gave Spurrier time, right? Because what are you going to do? Fire Steve Spurrier? Right. What are you going to do? Fire Steve Spurrier? Man, if in this instant gratification win now mode in college football, I think if it's by year 4 and Beamer isn't winning big, I think you'll have folks calling for his head, no doubt. I think there will be people calling. It's in college football, and if our rivals especially, they continue to have success, I think Beamer will get 4 years, and I think, you know, that's just the new age of college football, man. You just don't get 7, 8, 9 years to build a program.
So this is my fear. Rattler is a big time quarterback. I mean, from the outside looking in, that's the impression that the whole entire college football world, like, yo, Rattler chose South Carolina. Something big time is going on down there. Mm-hmm. And so far, I mean, he still got 4 games to turn around, but so far, he's crapped the bed. Mm-hmm. Who behind him do we see developing into a quarterback that can carry this team? That's what I fear. No, I don't see. We don't know because none of those guys have really hit the field. I don't see anyone to the level of Rattler. But then again, there's Satterfield as the OC. But then the new guy coming in is going to have to develop those guys behind him. And a 1 or 2 year, you think you could see that in 1 or 2 years?
Well,
I think it's going to I think it's going to have to be another portal guy.
Well, I was just going to say this, man, to your point. This is maybe kind of a off the subject, but in my personal opinion, I could be totally wrong, but from my vantage point, I think this year has massively hurt South Carolina in recruiting at the quarterback position. How could it not? If I'm Josh Heupel, if I'm any coach in the SEC and I'm going up against Carolina for a big-time quarterback recruit, I am literally referencing, I mean, look, they ruined Spencer Rattler's career. Why would you go there? They're not going to get the most out of you. Like, dude, I think it is you are naive if you think that this year what we've done with Spencer Rattler is it's an indictment. It's an indictment. And again, I think getting rid of the OC is the only way you start to really salvage it, to show that, hey, we're making changes on the offensive side. And, you know, so I think that's what you got to do. Again, we all know what needs to happen, but yeah, so.
Yeah, Rattler is, I don't see him moving on. He may move to another. He may go to another team, but developing that next guy is going to be the freaking hurdle. Yeah. And then you're going to lose Zach Pickens. Cam Smith is gone, and who do we have? That was the thing I saw with the defense. Well, this year coming in, you can't lose your best safety, one of your best defensive linemen, and expect the defense to be better. Right. And you're going to be facing that another year. Yeah. So The quarterback development worries me down the stretch. And next year really but not worries me, but I would like to see the program build on top of, you went 7-6 with the bowl game. You wanna hit 7 or 8 in the regular season. You want to see it improve, but when you're looking and forecasting, it's tough. But again, we talk about it on YouTube, and people get paid millions of dollars to coach this game. I'm gonna holler at you, bro.
Aaron, you're the man, man. I appreciate the call.
All right.
Great stuff from Aaron there. It's interesting to see a lot of the Spencer Rattler hate. I think there's a lot of fans that don't like him. People saying his career was ruined before he got to Columbia. I mean, I know he got benched last year, but was highly thought of. I don't know. Austin, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you asking. What's up? By the way, it was great to meet you at the game Saturday, and I know I already mentioned it, but appreciate the love with the Beamer Ball towels, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. I tried to go back to the recording on YouTube and find it, but I didn't see it. Maybe I'll do it when I have more time. So, I just wanted to say, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how Beamer manages the rest of the season. And the kind of getting to my calm outlook after digesting the game the past few days. You've got a most likely scenario of what's going to happen. There's not a whole lot of surprises. Probably 6-6, maybe 7-5. You get the Florida toss-up game because you get the same team that beat, Texas A&M and Kentucky, even though the offense didn't look great. That can probably handle a Vanderbilt team, but you're also got the same team from Missouri that's not going to do well against Tennessee and Clemson. You could have something crazy happen. You could beat Clemson. You could lose to Vandy, but chances are it's pretty straightforward the rest of the season. You're going to see Beamer actually manage the media, which you mentioned in your podcast from this morning, and you're going to see him manage a season where people are really conflicted. You're going to see what he does with the new OC, with the new contract. Again, something crazy could happen, and Satterfield can get a new contract. But chances are you got an OC coming in. You got a top 15 recruiting class. Hopefully it stays there. And we actually get to see some growth and some management of the rest of the season by Beamer, and see how he matures as a head coach. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and I appreciate you tuning in the podcast this morning, man. Yeah, when I said that I will be intrigued to see how Beamer handles the media moving forward. I mean, I think that's something that he's going to continue to evolve as a head coach and how he talks with the media. I'll tell you this, man, and I think I may have mentioned it on the pod, but I'll say it again. The only thing that's going to make people feel better, because no presser he has, no media availability is going to make you feel better, or any of us feel better. The only thing that's going to make us feel better is go out and win. Go beat Vanderbilt, and I'm not even sure, like, a win Saturday, if it's sloppy, if it's ugly, if it's Beamer ball, right? If the offense only accounts for 10 or 13 points, and you score 2 touchdowns off special teams and defense, right? I mean, even if you win, like, nobody's going to be happy about it. You really need to win the next 2, just to wash out that nasty taste from the Mizzou game. Outside of that, I don't really know. Beyond that, just firing Satterfield right now, I don't think there's anything he can say that's going to. In the meantime, I mean, I think it's going to be, just kind of people continue, like you mentioned. There's going to be this sense of discontent within the fan base, right? Because Marcus Satterfield's employed, and that Marcus Satterfield's our OC. So the problem is, too, you look at how you close out the season with Tennessee and then Clemson. I mean, there's a pretty high chance it's not going to be a fun finish, right? So I don't know, man. I think Gamecock fans just sort of have to grin and bear it at this point. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's an answer in the short term, as I said yesterday. What is the answer? The only answer is to go win the next 2 games. That's really it. So,
yeah. Well, let me present this situation to you and see how you feel about it. Let's say the most likely and most optimal likely scenario happens where we get that win against Florida, and we're going into a bowl game. We win that bowl game, 8-5. 8-5, and it's announced there's a new OC coming and top 15 recruiting class. I feel like most people would be happy with that year 2.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you be, right? I mean, I think a 7-5 year, it's where everybody nationally had you picked. And I mean, dude, all things considered, if you win the next 2 and let's just say you win the next 2, lose the following 2, you go 7-5, all things considered, with how bad your offense was, that's a victory. That's it. And especially like you said, if you win the bowl game, I mean, an 8-win season in my mind, I'd gladly sign up for it right now. I mean, I said it over the summer that I'd take 8-4. I'd just take an 8-win season. And as long as you do that and then move on from SAT, I'd be ecstatic with that year.
Yep. And let me throw one last thing at you.
Yeah.
And this is a source of a lot of my optimism. If you look at Beamer's strategy recruiting, he's recruiting in the trenches from high school, and he's kind of proven from last year that he's pulling his skill position and offense playmakers from the portal. Look at his current class from high school. I think 6 or more of the 4 stars in there are all defensive and offensive line. So he's pulling those trench guys who are kind of the foundation of teams from the high school ranks, and he's probably going to try to pull from the portal again for his playmakers. And I think that's probably a good foundation in this, current NIL format, where those skill high name players, they go where they're going to get paid, and they often don't stay there for 4 years. Smart.
Yeah, no, I think it is too. I mean, I think the portal has changed things, and the portal should have paid off much better than it has for South Carolina this year, but unfortunately, Marcus Satterfield has drove that car into the ditch. So but yeah, I think certainly I think there's a balance too, right? Because I think if you go too heavy in the portal, then you have high school kids that are like, well, if I go there, I mean, they're just going to bring a portal guy in, I'm not going to get to play. So, I mean, that's Beamer's job as a head coach. That's why he's getting paid millions of dollars to manage the roster and bring the best possible players in there and pull off that balancing act, if you will. But I definitely, yeah, I mean, I love what, if we just talk recruiting, I mean, you love what you see or what you're seeing from the recruiting side of things. Yeah, I mean, there's no complaints in that regard. They're addressing the issues at hand, the recruiting side of things with the offensive line, defensive line, the big uglies up front. And yeah, keep utilizing the portal to bring in playmakers. I mean, it worked pretty well with Antoine Wells. I mean, when he's touched the football, he's been a really good player for us. So I would expect that to continue, no doubt.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you.
Austin, I appreciate the call, man. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the love. Appreciate it. Great stuff from Austin Griesman. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into a quick break. But on the other side, I want to continue to hear from you more of your questions, comments, calls, and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. All right, guys, we're back. Taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. Let me get to a text really quick. My guy Tyler Knoll shot this over. Somebody also asked thoughts on Georgia, Tennessee this weekend. I tell you what, I don't know if Tennessee's going to win, but the plus 8.5, it's free money. Stealing. Absolutely stealing. Let's see. Tyler says, Chris, can't call and discuss this, but I have to ask this. Is Spencer really the best quarterback on our roster? Does he have elite arm talent? Sure, you can say that. What has he done to show us that this year, if we're looking at 2020 highlights, the reason why he is as a fan base, he is us as a fan base of the loop. Threw me for a loop. I'll get to that after this call. Robbie Davis, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you enjoying the last couple of days of a vacation, I'm assuming?
It's going well, man. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. I appreciate you asking. What's up?
The main thing that I want to see Saturday night, whenever we play Vanderbilt, I'm going to be honest with you. I am not expecting us to lose this game whatsoever. Okay? But this game right here, and no disrespect to Vandy, right? But with this game right here, with how horrible Vanderbilt has been in the last several years, okay? We've beaten them, 13 years in a row? Okay? Some of them, in my opinion, were closer than what I would have liked. But this game right here, this weekend, if we don't beat the ever-loved dog mess out of Vandy from start to finish, or move the ball on every drive and get points in some facet, just get points, okay? Field goals, touchdowns, I don't give a darn, okay? I don't care. But if we're not able, if this offense is sputtering against Vanderbilt, what more proof is Beamer going to need to say, okay, I got to listen?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see us go out there and dominate Vandy. I really would. I mean, I think the talent gap is there. I said some similar things last year, though, and we saw how that went. So, yeah, man, death taxes and Gamecocks football beating Vandy. It just happens on a year-in, year-out basis. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And just like you, I'm riding with Beamer the whole way. I'm not going to stop. Like I told you before, the second I heard that he was going to be our head coach, I was so excited. I got goosebumps. Okay. I was that excited that I got goosebumps on my arms whenever I heard he was the coach. And I am also, like I have said before, I am convinced that he's going to do what is best for the school. Okay? He's going to do what's best for the program, period. And I'm just going to do what I've done all year, watch games and hope and wake up. No matter who we're playing the rest of the way out, I don't know what order we're playing them in. But
we got Vandy, Florida, Tennessee, Clemson.
Okay, yeah. No matter how any of those other games turn out, okay, I'm gonna wake up on those Saturdays thinking to myself, we're gonna win today. Because every fan of every school does that. Regardless of what the spread is, you're going to wake up Saturday morning and think to yourself, we're going to win today. We're going to take care of business today. It never fails. Because every fan base has eternal optimism, as you like to say.
Mhm.
But I am convinced that if we lose by some miracle of the good Lord, if we somehow lose to Vandy, this will be the straw that broke the camel's back, and Beamer will let Satterfield, or as I like to call him these days, Marcus Shitterfield, okay? He will let him go at the end of the season, no question. Because like I said also earlier this week, I think he will let somebody go all that staff before he loses his job. Because I think if Beamer were to somehow lose this job, he would not be very happy with himself. I'm convinced of that. And I also think, last thing, and then I'll get out of here. I also am I hoping that Beamer is the guy, right, to get us to where we want to be? Yeah. But I also know that he might be the guy, like you said earlier, that gets us to the guy that is going to get us to where we want to be, which is in Atlanta, competing for the conference title and winning a conference title and then going on to the playoff. But the honest truth is we don't know that yet. We don't know. We're just going to have to sit back and relax and let her fly.
And Gamecock football fans are just like bad doctors. They have no patience, as we all know.
Exactly. And
None.
I will give you my prediction tomorrow.
Beautiful.
I'll have my prediction ready to go for tomorrow.
I can't wait.
Well, you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of the days of your trip, and be safe getting back.
Robbie, you're the man. I appreciate the call, my friend.
You're welcome.
Yeah, man. Take care. Great stuff from Robbie Davis. Let's see. There was a comment that made me laugh. It was Justin Jones. He says 3 things are absolute: death, taxes, and Coach 4 bitching and moaning on every Gamecock post on the internet. That one made me laugh.
To accept, press 1.
J-Rock, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you asking. What's going on?
Well, kind of wanted to maybe bring up a topic here. I know there's been some questions on Rattler. Now, I'll say this myself. I don't honestly think Rattler can be fairly judged, just like no one that plays on this offense can be judged fairly, because that just, runs this whole thing into the ground. I mean, it's like spinning wheels in mud. But, but I'm thinking maybe there's a couple other guys, and this is no indictment on Rattler. It's just, his skill set, I think what he does best isn't compatible with what Sat's trying to do. Maybe Doty, or maybe Rattler, not Rattler, or maybe Joyner or Doty one, because they are more of actual running quarterbacks. I mean, I know Spencer does run, he does run some. I mean, he's mobile, but I would probably venture to say that most would probably agree that, we've probably seen, Doty and DK be more of those running type quarterbacks. And, maybe that paired with, Marshawn Lloyd, maybe that would just add a little something and just try to help make the most of this terrible offense.
It is funny.
I don't know. What do you think?
It is funny, my guy, that a year ago, damn near to the date, I had people telling me that Luke Doty is not an SEC quarterback. And now those same people want Spencer Rattler benched for Luke Doty. How does that math add up?
Yeah.
I mean, I was a Doty defender last year, but there were people me on a Chris.
Yeah.
He's not an SEC quarterback. And now we all of a sudden, people, listen, people don't want Spencer Rattler benched because they feel like there's some answer waiting in the wings on the bench. They want Spencer Rattler benched because they can't get their way in getting Marcus Satterfield fired right now. And so he's the next best available option to move out of there. That's why. Let's just call a spade a spade. I don't care if you want Rattler bench. That's totally fine. That's your opinion. That's your take. But it ain't because you think Luke Doty or Dak Joyner or Braden Davis or Tanner Bailey or Colton Gauthier is the answer. You just can't get your way in getting Sat fired right now. So who's the next head on the chopping block? Well, it's Spencer Rattler because he's a starting quarterback. That's why people want him benched. Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, now, and definitely, the running aspect is one thing, but I will say this. Now, I don't think any other quarterback really compares to him when it comes to arm talent. And it's not so much that I would like to see him come out. I mean, just because I want him, I would like for them to bench him. It's honestly because, I mean, at this point, I mean, if they can convince him to come back next year, which I don't know, with all this stuff that's going to happen with the OC, new OC and stuff, who knows how that's going to go. But, I mean, honestly, I'd like to see him sit out for his own sake because I feel like every time he has to go out there and play in this horrible offense, it's not fair to the guy. And all it does is keep driving his numbers and his draft stock into the ground. I mean, I almost feel like at this point it would just be having mercy on the guy. Maybe, and then maybe once you get somebody who can actually call an offense and has a competent system in place, then bring him back, put him back out there. That way he can, thrive. Because I just don't see how there's any way he's going to thrive in this offense the way it sits right now.
Well, and I tell you this, if I'm Luke Doty, I mentioned this weeks ago, if I'm Luke Doty, I'm not just coming in to play garbage snaps, right? So unless you're about to hand me the keys and you are benching Spencer Rattler, truly, if I'm Luke Doty, I'm saying thanks, but no thanks. I'm saving my year of eligibility. If you do that, let's just play some fun hypothetical games. And by the way, I'm not saying anybody's wrong for saying bench Spencer Rattler. I almost don't even feel like there's a point in arguing it because it ain't going to happen. They're not going to fire Sat right now, and I don't think they're going to bench Spencer Rattler. I just don't see it happening because, hey, you hand them keys over to Luke Doty, I would expect Spencer Rattler to swiftly be in the transfer portal. And I don't want to speak for him, but Spencer Rattler's number one objective is to get to the league. I'm sure I'd love to be in his brain right now and wonder what in the world's going on in his head. But I think if it becomes so evident they bench Spencer Rattler here, I think he's gone. I think the portal is calling his name and he's out of here. But and listen, again, I see people in the comments saying Doty had a broke foot last year. I know. I was a Doty defender last year, right? I defended Luke Doty. I did. But I don't see an answer on the bench that's all of a sudden going to take this offense and make it into some dynamic thing. However, I will say it really does fall back onto Satterfield because they're not running, excuse me, they're not running an offense that's maximizing his abilities and maximizing his talents. Yeah. So I don't even know why you brought Spencer Rattler in, to be totally honest with you. Just outside of to make a couple of headlines. I mean, what's the point? They're not calling an offense that maximizes his skill set. So literally, what is the point? And it all got that all goes back to Marcus Satterfield.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I was listening to JC and Phil earlier too. I mean, it's like JC mentioned again, and I know you probably heard him say this as well. I mean, it's kind of worrisome when you hear that when it's like, we want to, because supposedly they wanted to bring him in so that he could, work in this pro-style offense and they could get him ready for the NFL. And, I mean, when you think back, I mean, they used to try it when Muschamp was here. That's what our defenders, that was, we'll get you NFL ready. And you look at how our defense played at times under him and think about all the talent and look at what those guys are doing now in the NFL. I mean, it's great if you want to get guys prepared for the NFL, but first and foremost, you're supposed to be doing something that's going to win you games. I mean, first and foremost, you play to win for the University of South Carolina. That's first and foremost. So I don't know. I just think either way, regardless of, whether Spencer transfers out and tries to go somewhere else next year, or he comes back. Either way, it's kind of going to be a little bit of a bittersweet thing because, even if we get the new OC and stuff, because we're either going to lose Rattler and we're going to look, silly because he's going to go somewhere else next year, or he's going to look, good again, and or he stays and we lose some quality depth at the position, and it's just not going to be it's not going to be a good look. But I don't know. I'm just hoping for the best. We got to focus on Vandy this week. That's probably our best chance of getting, bowl eligible to get that 6th win, and I just hope we can make the most out of what we got left of the season. So.
Indeed. I appreciate the call, man.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks so much. You too. What's kind of funny? I say this for the people that want, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying you're wrong, but for the people that want Spencer Rattler benched right now, what if not only he doesn't get benched, but he comes back next year? And he's in line to be the starting quarterback again. Going to be interesting. Hunter, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you asking. What's going on?
That's good. Looks like no Aztecs going on this year.
Yeah, technically, I think we could still get there, but we'd literally have to win out and win a bowl game. So I think my ass cheek is safe, my friend.
We can still make that bet for next year.
I will probably make a similar bet, but I if you haven't noticed by now, I don't make bets that I have a significant likelihood of losing.
Yeah.
That's why the ass tap bet is so, because personally, I got to be honest, Hunter, I don't want an ass tap. I don't. So I'm not gonna make a bet that I'm most likely gonna lose just so I can get an ass tap. I'm not doing that. So, and it's got to be significant. It might be the same next year. Hey, we win 10 games. I'll do it.
It's very possible. We got a good recruiting class for next year, so I'm just hoping Sat's not going to come back. Otherwise, we're just going to be in the same record as this year and last year.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so.
Yeah, that Missouri game, man. I was literally at a Halloween party at my cousin's house, and I had the game on my phone because he didn't have it on his TV, and he was watching, I think it was the other game or something. But I was watching it on my phone. I was like, man, I hope we do something in the fourth quarter, and we weren't really doing nothing. And I just turned it off. I was so depressed that night because of that game. But I know it's just football, but damn.
Yeah, man, it's your team. It's just football, but it's your team, and it's a team we love desperately. And hey, the wins are the highs are extremely high, and so the lows are low. And that loss sucked, man. It hurt, no doubt. That was we're still sitting here. We're still sitting here on Wednesday, and people, I feel like this is still kind of a therapy session. This is just a vent week. That's all this is. So,
yeah. I even told my dad, I was like, we were only ranked for only a week, and he was like, well, that's for part of being a Gamecock fan. We sometimes suck and we sometimes don't. So,
well said, my friend. Poetic. Sometimes we suck and sometimes we don't. That is very well said.
Yep. So that's all I got to say.
Hunter, I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye.
Great stuff. Great stuff from Hunter. And guys, again, I want to say thank you to all of our callers, everybody that calls into the show. You guys make TDC what it is. Truly, I mean that. I love it. I love it. This show is for all of us. It's for you. I see the folks in the Big Cock Club Discord and the TDC Questions channel, Brendan M. Why you don't want to run it back, my guy? Sat Rat 2023? No? Sat Rat 2023? We'll run back the Beamer Rattler merch. Beamer Rattler 23. I love it. Let's see. M. Colt says, I just don't think there's any potential downside to trying another quarterback when we're going backwards on all of these drives. I still think Rattler has the most talent in the quarterback room. Listen, I'm if Beamer and company, if they decide that's what's best for the football team, why not? Why not? So be it. So be it. Coleman, I'll tell you this, Coleman Hall, you sound like you're very close, my friend, to pulling the plug on Beamer. I mean, I don't want to speak for you now. But you sound like you're close. You sound like you're pretty damn close. Your skepticism of Shane Beamer is high. You and Coach Ford both are kind of in the same boat, I think. I don't know. I don't know. Again, it's Coleman Hall says Chick-fil-A must jam. Okay, well, there you go. That's all she wrote. Yeah, I mean, listen, if they keep Sat, it's going to be ugly. I mean, it's going to be really, really ugly. Yeah, so it's going to be ugly. I don't see it happening. I don't know how it could happen. So, guys, we're going to jump into one final break. On the other side, I want to continue to hear from you, more of your questions, comments, calls, and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. All right, guys, we're live. We're back. Taking your questions, comments, calls. 843-790-3377. You hear that sigh as we come back. I'm just thinking to myself, man, until Marcus Satterfield's gone, this fan base is gone to hell. I mean, it's just wild seeing the comments. It's wild. It's wild. Vanderbilt week. Gamecocks taking on Vandy this weekend. I don't even know if fans really want to talk about the game. I don't know that we do. I mean, this is therapy week, folks. Therapy is in session. Therapy is in session. Satterfield has broken this fan base. This fan base is shattered. Folks ready to give up their season tickets because Marcus Satterfield is calling the plays. And, hey, I don't blame you. I don't blame you, man. Listen, you pay for a product we can't score. To hell with it. To hell with it. Man. Guys, phone lines are open. 843-790-3377. I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready for Travis says, we're tired of the BS. Travis, you've been tired since 1896, my guy. You've been tired since 1896. Been waiting on the year since 1896. Been waiting on lightning to strike. Getting that right, Travis. We've been young since 1892. Coleman says, I've spent thousands of dollars on tickets, and the fact Beamer repeats Muschamp's errors is just idiotic. Yes, the PTSD from Marcus Satter, or excuse me, from Will Muschamp's mistakes. I mean, it rings loud in Columbia. So, I don't know, man. Guys, I wish Marcus Satterfield was fired 2 days ago. I wish that was the case. Trust me. I don't want to have to spend the entire week talking Sat. I don't want to have to spend the entire week, acting as if we need to burn the program to oblivion. My guy John Rice says, do other fan bases overreact like ours does? Yeah, John, I think so. Listen, I think the closer you get to it, I think the closer you get to it, I just think it's, we take it so much more personally. And I think, here's the thing. I think what happened to a lot of fans was that 4-game losing streak. God, I'm getting my words all mixed up. I think what happened is that 4-game winning streak, right? We knew we drank the Kool-Aid a bit. We drank the Kool-Aid and the winning just felt so good. And then to come into that game with all the momentum that you had and fall flat on your face, and especially on the offensive side. I think the frustrations offensively were building up for weeks, right? Because you didn't look good on offense against Kentucky. You didn't look good on offense against A&M. Even SC State and Charlotte were somewhat of struggles. I mean, you haven't looked good on offense all season. So even amidst that 4-game winning streak, those what's the word I'm looking for? I just had a brain fart. Those frustrations continued to mount. And now what you're seeing is just the product, right? It's finally, now that you've lost, it's come to the forefront. So people keep talking about Satterfield's hoodie. What hoodie did he wear? I didn't see this. Like, what hoodie? I got to go to YouTube now because I want to see the hoodie. I feel like I'm missing out. Y'all are here we go. Let's see. Oh, yeah. It says what's next with the Carolina logo and the SEC logo. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, does that bother y'all what hoodie he wears? Did it have no sleeves? I literally just looked at it. It looked like it had sleeves to me. Do y'all care what Satterfield wears to the presser? Would that make you feel better if he was wearing something else? I mean, James Kendall says that, and all of our rivals are playing hot potato with the Natty. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. Being a Gamecock's not for the faint of heart, James. It's not. You know what's funny? You would think Gamecock fans would get used to it. You would think that at some point, right, we would learn, and we would say, we would learn from the past. Gamecock fans have a level of hope and optimism that is unparalleled. Right? I mean, you could argue that the best people to be in relationships with, because they're always going to see the best in you. No matter how many times you let them down, they're always going to see the best in you. It's how Gamecock fans are wired. Because you would think this fan base would learn after a while. But nope. We show up ready to get hurt again every single year. And Coleman, to your point, feels like we're asking for the bare minimum. I don't disagree with that. The offense just has to be fixed. The root of the problem is Gamecock fans are so tired of watching bad offensive football. That's what this all comes down to. I don't think it's that anybody's upset with being 5-3. Right? I don't think anybody's upset being 5-3, but it's how it's happening. And when you lose, it's how it looks. And it's really just how it looks as a whole. South Carolina fans are tired, and I'm tired of watching bad offensive football. Even if you go beat Vanderbilt, it's like a 23-17 game. It's like, yeah, Justin, they turned the comments off on YouTube for the coordinator press conferences. Apparently they do that, yeah. They turn the comments off. I mean, yep, Kevin, I mean, hit the nail on the head. The only way to be happy is to win or Satterfield gets fired. I mean, that's literally, yeah. Yep. And that's why I said yesterday, guys, unfortunately, I don't think there's a solution in the short term. We're literally going to have to tough it out. It doesn't matter how much you kick and scream and bitch and moan. We're just going to have to tough it out. Marcus Satterfield is this football team's OC. That's it. Probably for the next 4 games, Marcus Satterfield is this football team's OC. So, Jack says, how is 8 weeks of terrible offense an overreaction? We only get 12 games a year, and the majority have been shit. Got lucky against Kentucky, and A&M was driving to take the lead when their quarterback got hurt. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an overreaction to say that there needs to be changes offensively. I don't. So, I don't think it's unreasonable. Preston says, I think Beamer's going to keep him for next year. He seems like he believes in him. Preston, I've already said this before, but I'll say it again. Shane Beamer retaining Marcus Satterfield would be nothing short of career suicide. It'd just be nothing short of, he's going to make the best possible decisions behind closed doors that he feels are the best for Gamecocks football, but it would be nothing, with all things that, here's the thing, guys. And as we close out, if we close it being 2:00, there's just so much damning evidence that I've talked about all week long. And then you look at the numbers on the field. Marcus Satterfield will forever be known as the offensive coordinator that ruined Spencer Rattler. Ruined him. That's what he's known for. He can try to sell you on the fact he's a quarterback guru, an offensive guru. Now, well, you've driven Spencer Rattler's draft stock into oblivion. Who on this offense, outside of Marshawn Lloyd, has improved their draft stock this season? Nobody. Absolutely nobody, and we have Marcus Satterfield to thank for that. Guys, we've hit 2 o'clock. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. If you missed anything today, be sure to check out the Daily Crow podcast version in our podcast feed. Again, thank you all so much, everybody that called in. Anthony Treash, of course, for taking the time to chat. And podcast drop this morning, like I said, guys, TSUS episode 722. So be sure to go check that out. Guys, again, thank you all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.